Hey everyone, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Ted ExandShadow Wiesen to give our thoughts on the reveal of Kirby for the Switch at E3 2017. So let's get started. Alright Ted, I know you're just as big of a Kirby fan as I am, and I know, probably like me, you were really hyped to see this trailer because I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't expect Kirby on the Switch this soon, especially since earlier in the year they talked about a multiplayer Kirby game coming to the 3DS.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what this game is based on that description, unless they're also doing something on the 3DS that's just different from this. But still, awesome. Kirby on the Switch, I am totally down.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it as well. Not that I was surprised that we would be getting a Kirby game on the Switch eventually. That's just an inevitability. Kirby's probably been even more consistent than Mario when releasing games on a regular basis, I would have to say. But Kirby is usually something that they wait a couple of years to get a game out for. It's usually something that comes out like 2 years into a system's lifespan, and this is seemingly much earlier than that. If they said 2018, if I had to guess, it would probably be early 2018, but that's just...
I think yeah, it's probably going to be early. Like, if I had to guess, like, Robobot and Triple Deluxe both came out around May. I would expect the same thing here.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's no real proof of that, but that's just a solid guess, I would have to say. So, I was surprised to see it this soon, but it also... It's weird, it looks simultaneously very far and very early in development at the same time. Like, there's a lot of... pretty much every core concept for the game I can imagine is here already, but we're still lacking things like a name and all sorts of stuff. So, like, granted, I was super pumped, especially when they showed off things like the combination powers and the enemy buddies again. But it was also just like, okay, it's just called Kirby. And knowing that there's not even a real name for a game kind of dulls your hype a little bit, unfortunately. The same thing happened when I saw the Yoshi trailer, too. It's just like, okay, it's Yoshi. Alright, that's neat, I suppose. You get what I mean?
No, I totally get it. There's something about a name that makes it much more final and seem like much further along. Now, granted, we also have Metroid Prime 4, which has a name, but no gameplay.
Else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it can work both ways. But no, you're right. It does sort of keep the hype from getting too much because it does seem really early. We don't have a name yet. We have basic gameplay in place, and I mean it looks fun from what I can tell. I mean it's your classic Kirby. It's hard not to be fun. It's really Kirby comes down to the minutia of how they've changed things up when it comes to how each game is different. Honestly, especially when it comes to platformers.
Yeah, because all things considered, I think we can basically just expect another game in the Triple Deluxe Return to Dreamland Robobot style for this one. It's just, it looks like instead of having any kind of level-specific gimmicks like the Hypernova, the copy abilities, or the Robobot, it just seems to be focused more on the platforming and the co-op with not animal friends, the enemy friends, and the power combinations, I would assume, are kind of taking the place of having a Robobot armor or a Hypernova at the end of specific levels or something like that. But
yeah, that'd be my guess as well. And there's, you're talking about it being more in those veins, but we're also missing those like collectibles that we usually see in these early trailers. Like they show off Triple Deluxe or Robobot, and they usually have these like the Sunstones and whatnot that you're collecting, and there was no sign of those.
Yeah, considering that pretty much everything else seems to be ripped straight from specifically Triple Deluxe and Robobot, because those are the more recent ones. I would imagine that something akin to the Sunstones or Code Cubes is in the game, just because it looks so similar that it would be weird to not have something like that in the game. Mm-hmm. I guess they're probably just waiting for whatever idea for a story that they're going to have for this game to be a little bit more finalized, so that whatever MacGuffin we're picking up has like a final design, if I had to guess. Because it'll probably, if I had to guess, it'll probably function exactly like the Code Cubes or Sunstones. It's just like, what specific thing are we picking up this time is the bigger question.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
How dark will the final boss's story be this time? Like, I don't, because if you read the pause menu descriptions for the final bosses for Robobot and Triple Deluxe, it's like Wow.
Yeah, no, they can. I mean, Kirby's always been a little dark with what they're exactly pulling off. Like, who knows? Maybe we'll see the return of Zero 2 or something like that. Have a high def blood, since we're going that Kirby 64 route with combination powers.
Yeah.
It'd be. I mean, the thing is, Kirby's such a weird series because on the surface, it seems like the games are rarely that different from one another, but the differences actually do make each game feel just a little bit different.
The consistency is also something that you learn to appreciate, because each game feels familiar, but it also doesn't feel like the exact same game in the way that, some people might say that, like, some of the new Super Mario Brothers games might in specific instances, because those minutiae really do add up to making each game feel very different. Because recently I played through Planet Robobot again, and I'd done a Triple Deluxe playthrough not too long before that, and although, arguably the two are, like, almost identical games, the differences between Hypernova and the Robobots make them feel very, very different. So I would imagine that simply having the combination powers and seemingly a more focus on co-op stuff in this game, and like the enemy buddies maybe being able to power up your attacks to some extent, I could imagine this definitely feeling very different than either of those games, especially since they're taking a cue from Robobot in this game, because one of the big things that made people like Robobot so much was that, okay, this armor isn't just limited to the second half of certain levels, it's in almost every single one. So they're trying to make sure that what changes up the gameplay is more present throughout the adventure, which I think is a solid idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, I've never actually played Return to Dreamland. It seemed, fun enough, and it definitely set the structure for what we eventually saw with Triple Deluxe and Robobot. But it also just seemed a little bit more limiting, especially with your friends, because, Kirby can be anything, and it's cool being Meta Knight or D or Bandana D, but they only have that one ability the entire time, so it's not quite as fun as, well, Superstar, where you can team up with your friend and they can be whatever power, just like Kirby. And that, having the companions like this once again, really gives those options. And I was like, one of the things I was shocked to find as I was looking through the trailer and for the analysis was that your friends can combine their powers as well. Now, I don't know if they can go as crazy as like Curling Stone Kirby. I don't know if they'll change shape like that. But on the most basic level, sort of like more Squeak Squad, they can at least get those combination powers, and that's exciting in and of itself.
Yeah, the co-op definitely seems to be more thought out than in Return to Dreamland, because Return to Dreamland, it's a good co-op game, but I wouldn't say it's a great one. Really, the most use I got out of the game playing a co-op was actually playing it single player, which is like, oh crap, I lost hammer and I can't do this hammer, but oh wait, I'm just gonna grab my other Wiimote, drop DDD in, and then take him out once I'm done with this hammer puzzle. And just having the enemies be your co-op companions, I think, is just generally more fun than, just having multiple Kirbys or having a couple of extra, like, other characters like Waddle Dee or Meta Knight or whatever, because there's more variety with it, and it's just like, okay, do you want to be water? Cool, I'm gonna pop you out and now you're a water, or now you're a cutter. And it's much more distinct, it feels more fast-paced, and this is, like, not really related to anything, but throwing the hearts at the enemies is just adorable, and I love it. And not only can they just, like, follow around with you and, like, have a little bit more variety in what they can control, there's also they can help you out more directly by powering up Kirby, and we can assume maybe having Kirby power up them, if because, like, it feels more cooperative than, like, the most cooperative thing you could really do in Return to Dreamland was have everybody stack on top of each other, which, if I remember correctly, didn't really do all that much.
Yeah, not really. It didn't seem like it anyway. Especially, Kirby got his special ability, and then everybody else was just sort of waiting around for him to finish his whole thing. So, yeah there's already a lot more interaction, and, like, that whole scene with Burning Leo where Kirby uses his fire sword to slam the ground, and there's fire spreading all over, and all of a sudden Burning Leo has this exclamation point above his head, and there's this set of explosions. I'm like, man, just working together to just create these devastating attacks. Like, you could really terrorize Dreamland with that, and that sounds so much fun.
If there's a co-op arena in this game, I would love to imagine what kind of co-op strategies would be in place for, like, taking care of the true arena with friends. You know, because those look like absolute boss destroyers, if you can take care of them right.
Oh, yeah.
So, that would be awesome.
It's just exciting to see that kind of cooperative element and just see how they've expanded upon it while really still referencing the past as far as, you know, it being directly lifted from Superstar. Like, I believe, like, this is the first time we've seen this buddy system since Superstar, and, well, Superstar Ultra, but that's a remake, so it doesn't really count.
It is, as far as I can tell, like, maybe barring a spin-off or two, this is really the first time in a main Kirby platformer that you've been able to really control enemies again, which is really, really cool. And one thing that I really do appreciate is that while the combination powers in general do seem to be more on the side of Squeak Squad, where it's just kind of like an elemental attribute to a specific weapon rather than full-out combinations, the kind of the enemy, the co-op powers, like you were talking about where Burning Leo has that extra explosion, I think really do help to make that feel much more interesting and unique. Because that was one of the most disappointing things about Squeak Squad, was when I was playing it, it's just like, oh, combination powers are back, and loving Kirby 64, you know, it's just like, oh man, this is going to be awesome, and then it's just kind of, you know, oh, fire sword, lightning sword, and that always kind of felt lame. So so at first when I saw this and it was just like, oh, it's just going to mostly be fire sword or water bomb or whatever, that was initially a little bit disappointing, but once you saw that, okay, but now you can do these ultra attacks by teaming up with your friends, then it made it seem much, much more interesting and cool. Because again, this is, I think, probably going to be a much more interesting game to play co-op than Return to Dreamland, or honestly I think even more so than Amazing Mirror, because in Amazing Mirror it was mostly just you kind of played at the same time as your friends, but there wasn't much to do with your friends while you were playing it. It was just kind of like, okay, you can all explore the same world at the same time, which was cool, granted, but when I'm playing a game with a friend, I like to either cooperate with them or compete with them kind of directly. So this seems much more interesting, at least for my tastes.
Yeah, I was actually shocked because I've never played Squeak Squad, and I'd talked to you before about how you were disappointed by the combination powers, but I think I had forgotten why you were disappointed. So when I was researching for the analysis and saw that there were only 5 combinations in that game, I'm like, wait, what? I feel like I'm missing something. Am I sure I have every combination here? And no, that was it. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense why Ted is so disappointed in Squeak Squad as far as combination abilities are concerned. That's a bit unfortunate, but you're right. They have made them a bit more interesting in here, and I like the elemental powers, like the water bomb, and it makes sense that they go more elemental for some of these because it's a little easier to do, because obviously we're going to have a lot more powers than we did in 64.
Yeah, 64 only had, like,
7.
8 powers. 7, yeah okay. And also, you also had to remember that each power only really had one move, all things considered. So it's a little bit, you can kind of imagine why it would be harder to have, like, 64 unique power combinations when each one, if you're expecting each one to have a full-blown move list in the vein of Superstar, you know? Like, there's probably fewer individual moves in Kirby 64 than most other Super styled Kirby games. Because, like, you can throw Ninja Stars, but that's all you can do. That's all the B button do, is throw the Ninja Star. So, yeah, I mean, as cool as it would be to see, like, a true Kirby 64 combination system with Superstar-styled controls, I think that would be a little bit much, because I think it would probably make the game a little bit too complex for its own good, all things considered.
Yeah, that absolutely would be the case in that, and if that ever happened, like there's just they'd have to limit how many abilities you'd have in the first place, and people wouldn't want that. One of the fun things is having just a ton of crazy abilities, and you know, it'd be kind of cool to see them mix and match again. But it's, you know, I feel like they're finding a happy medium here, and finding out what works best based on which combination style. Because if you go to Curling Stone, there's really not much else you're going to be able to do with that, like other than being thrown forward. But it's still devastating because, as far as I can tell, it's Chili that launches Kirby forward in that form, and then leaves a trail of ice behind as well. So again, it's just as devastating. It's just you're teaming up for it.
Yeah, honestly, it looks much cooler than Curling Stone and Kirby 64, which was always one of the lamer powers, in my opinion. So
yeah.
I
think once everybody saw this, everybody was like, "Oh, please bring back the double lightsaber."
Yeah, I think that, obviously for the trailer, we're gonna assume it's somewhat earlier development, and maybe like stuff like Fire Hammer and Lightning Bomb are a little bit easier to implement than some of this other stuff. I'm really more interested in seeing if, let's say, we can combine Cleaning and Hammer, or is it like, can you only combine stuff that has an elemental property or whatnot, or can you do like Fire Water or whatever? And if you do so, is it going to be as useless as Fire Ice was in Kirby 64?
I mean, at least they acknowledged that.
No, it's one of my favorite powers, because like, what did you think this was gonna be?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. That's so good. No, you're right. And going back to that, maybe not. It's funny because they're so linked together. But you talked about the hearts earlier, how you throw hearts into the enemies in order to take them over. And we're seeing something very different from Superstar, where Kirby's hats essentially are appearing on these characters as well. And that gave me the idea, and it might seem dark, but this is Kirby we're talking about, where maybe the plot line is that his friends lost their bodies and he's trying to help them out, but he has their hearts that he can throw out, and that's why that's why it's involved like this. And again, it seems dark, but we have Mario capturing people. They're just going for the pun there. But also, Kirby doing roughly the same thing with his enemies and putting some sort of hat on them as well. I like the idea of it. Like, it gives, I don't know, maybe I like context, but...
Oh, I love context, too. I would like to see, I know that the story isn't really important in Kirby, but I would like to see, like, what our villain is, or, like, what the premise of the game is supposed to be or whatnot, just because I'm interested in those sorts of things. If I remember my Kirby lore correctly, the split-colored Kirbys from Amazing Mirror were actually, like, Kirby getting split in half by Dark Meta Knight or something to that effect. So... maybe? I'm not sure. They'll just have something like, oh, maybe there won't be a reason. Maybe some enemies are just, like, friendly for some reason now.
Yeah, or something like that. I mean, Kirby's, ever since the beginning, has split up into multiple Kirbys to dance, so it's just certain games, they give each of them a different color, and we see that color reflected on the enemies and in the hats themselves, so who knows?
The different hats do appear to make each enemy much more visible.
Yes.
As well, which is one of the biggest issues with these co-op 2D platformers is that you always lose which character you're supposed to be. In every game I've played like this, it doesn't matter if it's Rayman, Kirby, Mario, whatever, I always end up looking at the wrong character at some point, so making them more distinct is always a good thing for me, so, because not only do you want to not mess up Poppy Bros Jr. with Kirby, you don't want to mess up Poppy Bros Jr. with another Poppy Bros Jr. So
yeah, that would be kind of bad. It's like, why are you trying to kill me? I'm trying to kill this Poppy Bros. That kind of thing. It's all very interesting to just see the concepts in play already, and even the world map, I appreciate that it's a little different this time around. It's more like Yoshi's Woolly World, where you can walk around it, and there's this kind of like, the ground looks kind of like felt, and I didn't bring it up in the analysis. I was just sort of running short on time, and I really didn't know what else to say about it, because the thing is, Kirby doesn't have that look either. It's just that this world does, so I was like, I'm not quite sure what this means. So because I didn't really have anything to say about it, it's like I didn't feel like, hey, this is a thing. Moving on.
For one thing, I guess we didn't really mention this, but the game looks gorgeous. I need to say, it's all very clean and sharp and colorful and all that. I like how everything seems to have detail and texture, which, I've noticed it's a very common thing for a lot of these Nintendo games. In order to keep kind of the colorful, cartoony style, but also like show off texture work and stuff, they've been setting them not quite in the real world, but with real world-esque sort of things going on. Like, the biggest example of that is the new Yoshi game, where it's just like, okay, this actually does look like it could take place on some kid's craft table or something like that. But
yeah.
It's still there in Kirby, too, where the game just looks gorgeous, all things considered. And I think it'll only probably look more impressive as we get more unique settings, because the most unique setting was the kind of pinkish one, with the different kind of tea cozies with them. Everything else was pretty, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill, but not super unique for Kirby. I would say.
Yeah, but we've seen these types of areas before. Although I do like how they made the cave stand out just by having that crescent moon shape in the roof to let the light come in.
The lighting in the game in general, I need to give props to, because you can even notice the differences. Because I'm watching the trailer on repeat as we're doing this, like the difference in lighting between when you're in an overworld grassy area versus even when you're fighting Wispy Woods, where you're supposedly in a deeper forest, you can notice the lighting difference, and I always appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, it makes sense that Wispy Woods is back yet again.
Oh, yeah.
And he seems like he's going to die quick.
Yeah. I always kind of prefer it when they just kind of bring back Wispy Woods instead of having, like, they're not Wispy Woods. Like, the Stone Golem, I forget what his name is, maybe King Golem in Amazing Mirror, or Flowery Woods in Triple Deluxe. It's just like, okay, I kind of want to fight Wispy,
Yeah.
Like, not Wispy.
keep it classic, and let's see what other kind of crazy things he can do. Like, we know there's a lot of apples involved, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think I even kind of noticed the game slow down a little bit in the trailer with all those apples on screen at the same time. I don't know if that's just me, or just like because it's an early build.
I didn't notice anything. It might be the case. It's hard to say.
I might just be seeing things, I should stress.
Yeah.
So,
but the other cool thing, like with Kirby games, is seeing what powers return, what enemies return, and of course you got your staples like your Waddle Dees, your Waddle Doos, your Sword Knights, and so on. Like those guys are always going to be there. It's just always going to be the case. But every so often they throw you some curveballs, like, hey, Whip is back. Hey, Water's back. Hey, Cleaning is back.
Yeah. I did not expect to see Cleaning ever come back, to be perfectly honest. It's one of the more bizarre powers from Dreamland 3, and the fact that potentially you can do certain combos to make animal friends pop up is also bizarre, because if I remember correctly, Dreamland 3 isn't one of my favorites, so I don't play it very often, but I believe the move that Nago does, where he's like squishing Kirby across the ground, I believe that's Nago's combination move with Cleaning in Kirby Dreamland 3.
Yes,
so
that is the case, because I have played very little of it, but I also got really bored really quickly, because, you go from Superstar to Dreamland, and you can just feel the slowness of the game, and Dreamland 3 really just is a prototype for Kirby 64, in my opinion, because it's most of the same ideas, just not as interestingly executed, unfortunately. So, it definitely caters to a more slower-paced kind of play style, but... And it was cool bringing the animal friends back, because I grew up on Dreamland too, but then I was playing through the 25th anniversary collection and going game to game to game to game, and you go from Superstar with all these crazy powers and how they can each do different things, and then Dreamland 3 is each power can only do one thing. And, you have the animal friends to sort of change it up, and that's why it makes sense for Cleaning Kirby this time around to actually have a full set of powers like Superstar, because he didn't have that before. It was always just the simple sweeping motion in the original game, and then you get a little bit more variety with each of the animal friends. And I'm not even sure if all the animal friends will make an appearance in this, because I was looking over their move list, I'm like, I can't really see all of these working unless they really change him up. Like, Nago makes a lot of sense, because in that, he turned into a washcloth and he got pushed forward. That makes perfect sense for a running attack.
That's a perfect dash attack, like, right there, pretty much.
Like, we might see, as a Kine or Kine, show up when he goes underwater.
I believe it's Kine.
Yeah, I've always pronounced it Kine, but you never know. But I could totally see Kine show up whenever Cleaning Kirby goes underwater.
Yeah, or, I forget I did not really grow up with 2 or 3, so I can never remember their names. I believe the pink one is Choo Choo, if I remember correctly. I have no idea how her power would seamlessly fit into a moveset. But then again, not every Kirby moveset is orthodox, because, you've got wackos like Circus Kirby or Dr. Kirby, which is, which could have some bizarre movesets at points. Not everyone needs to make sense, I would imagine.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. And it would just be good to see them, because, again, I grew up with the animal friends, or at least 3 of them.
Yeah, people love the animal friends, so, you know, I would, they've had cameo appearances in a lot of the games, actually, but it's been a long time since they've made a full return, and I don't think we'll see them, like, ever act like they did in 2 or 3 ever again, where you, like, combine with them. But I do think that the more emphasized cameos, I think, are nice, as opposed to, like, being randomly in the background of, like, Kirby Fighters or something like that, you know? It's a nice touch to people who have been playing since the Game Boy or SNES days.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, that's really, like, Kirby is always such a love letter to itself. Like, it really respects its own history, and it builds off that. And we're still getting new stuff. We saw 3 new enemies, some sort of guy that was getting hit by the cleaning stuff might be a new cleaning enemy, as I posited. Hard to really say since we only see him getting attacked. A fire shield enemy, which got taken out by the new water bomb, and of course Dribbly, our new water companion, and God, he's adorable.
Yeah, I think they really did need to make a new kind of, like, standard water enemy, because the water enemies in Return to Dreamland basically were just those, I can't pronounce the name, Galboros?
Galbos, yeah.
Galbos, yeah. They were basically just a water version of a fire enemy, and, you know, that's a little lame. So, giving them their own new kind of enemy where you'll commonly see them and be like, okay, this is the guy that gives you water, I think that was a good idea. And I also like that they're pulling some older enemies for this, like, Burning Leo as well. Like, he's not super common as well, so yeah, it's always interesting to see what gets brought back, because, again, like, for me, a lot of when I was playing these games, I grew up with, like, Kirby 64 and the Game Boy Advance games particularly. When I was playing some of the stuff like Triple Deluxe or Robobot, some of those enemies that were actually callbacks were some that I had seen for the first time for me. So it's always interesting to see, like, it's always going to be some new stuff for everybody who's playing. Like, if this is some kid's 2nd or 3rd Kirby game, like, Burning Leo is going to be a new enemy to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Burning Leo stands out. He has that moveset, and he looks cool.
Yeah, or hot. Looks hot.
Yeah, exactly. Looks hot. He's hot. The thing is, you know, there's hard to say exactly how this game's going to turn out, but the skeletal structure that we're seeing right now seems very solid as far as being a multiplayer game, showing off these new abilities, bringing back combinations, a unique way for 4-player action to be around, and it just feels like a really good fit for the Switch.
Yeah, you're right. This is a very solid skeleton, but what we need to see, I think, is the meat at this point. And I don't expect to see a lot of this game until, like, maybe the fall or winter, when we get, like, a real name and release date, but knowing that we've got a Kirby game coming and that it looks this solid is promising, I think.
Absolutely. So is there any ability that you would love to see come back? Like, what's one ability that you need to have come back for this game?
Let's talk standard abilities first, because, like, when it comes to combination powers, we could be here all day, but I would love to see Beetle come back. Beetle being removed from Robobot was one of the most disappointing aspects of that game for me, because it is one of my favorite abilities ever in Kirby, so I would love to see Beetle come back. When it comes to combination, like, obviously you want the lightsaber, you know, that's just a given, but this might be a little wacky, but Fridge Kirby. I would love to see Fridge Kirby from 64 also come back in some way. I don't know how they'd do it, but it would be awesome if they could do it.
Yeah. As far as standard powers, I want Circus Kirby to come back, because I always loved Circus Kirby.
Circus Kirby's phenomenal.
Yeah. Poison Kirby also really enjoyed. I thought he was a lot of fun to play with. And there could be some interesting combinations there, like Poison Sword or Poison Water. Who knows?
Pollution Kirby.
Pollution Kirby, yes. Turn him into a Captain Planet villain. No, there's just so many ways that they could play with that, and I mean, personally, I hope that you can combine the same powers with themselves again to have these superpowered versions.
That would be awesome.
Because we haven't seen any powers, like the same power in the same group yet, so I'm not even sure if it's possible. But come on, who doesn't want to see, like, the Phoenix flying forward for the fire, or
that would be great.
Dynamite for bomb? No, not dynamite. The missiles.
The missiles were great. There's one thing I hope they don't bring back. It's the dynamite, because that was a really annoying power.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I'd like to see what they do with like double sword or something like that, because sword technically wasn't in Kirby 64. So like if like Kirby could dual wield swords, that would also be amazing, or something like that. I'm not sure. Again, I think one thing that I have to do personally is temper my expectations and not expect wacky Kirby 64 styled combinations, as cool as that would be. But you know, it would be great. It's great to hope, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm honestly expecting more stuff along the lines of Squeak Squad, just a lot more variety than Squeak Squad had, and then like for certain abilities, just having that one special combination attack, like curling, the curling stone. So we'll see. It's Kirby. I can't wait.
No, this is. I think, you know, no matter what the little niggles with the combination system or the animal friends, like, there might be things we might want or like better than other things, but all things considered, this is going to be a solid game no matter what. It's just a matter of whether or not it's a good game or an amazing game along the lines of Triple Deluxe or Robobot, I think. Yeah. So.
I've seen some people predict the name as Kirby Superstar 64 Squeak Squad. Because it's basically, I mean, it basically is taking those 3 games and mushing them together, so.
And, you know, there are worse ideas for a Kirby game, so.
That is true. So, I wouldn't mind having it be, kind of more like Superstar in structure. Not totally, but still have that, I mean, basically like how Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot were, where there were other side games to play, but I'm hoping for like some quick ones like as well, like the Megaton Punch and the dueling. I think that's what I'm thinking of. Like, I wouldn't mind quick mini games like that because again, they feel like a perfect idea for the Switch.
I've never really been a huge fan of the mini games in the Kirby games, to be honest. Like, pretty much all of them have always felt like an afterthought to me, and this goes back even to like the earliest games in the series. Like, my favorites are probably my 3 favorite games in the series are Triple Deluxe, 64, and Nightmare on Dreamland, and even, like, those older games, like, the mini-games were never my favorite part of those. Like, it's just like, oh, you can play hopscotch, oh, woo, whoop-de-doo. But, I mean, granted, I also like how much attention they put into those small details, and I did have fun with, like, the deluxe version of the King DDD Rhythm game from Triple Deluxe as well. I think that some smaller mini-games I think would also be nice. One of my problems with Superstars is that there's so many small games that it feels like the game lacks focus for me. But, like, 1 or 2 small... actually, if they were going to do it, I would like it if they structured it kind of like Kirby's Adventure / Nightmare on Dreamland, where you have these mini-games and you can play them on the world map and, like, earn extra lives or maybe, like, rare power-ups or something. That would be cool, I think.
Possible.
Anything's possible since we know so little about the game at this point.
That is true. That is true. I mean, my biggest hope still is that, okay, they got the 2D Kirby out of the way. We have enough time for another Kirby game on the Switch. Please give us our 3D Kirby.
I think a lot of that depends on how well that 3D Deluxe version of the minigame from Robobot does. I think that's, and I mean, I'm sure it'll probably do fine, but I think that they've been so hesitant on doing a 3D Kirby game for so long. I'm not going to expect it until I see it, I suppose, is the way that I've looked at it. Because once you skip the GameCube generation with being a 3D game, there's no longer the expectation that, okay, you have to jump to 3D.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So, as much as I would love it to happen, it's not going to be something I expect until I see it, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Alright, well I think that covers it for our Kirby Switch discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Ted, where can they find you at?
My name is Ted, I'm a member of BrainScratchComms, and I also have my own channel called ExandShadow. I've done Kirby games in the past at both places, and they're really cool, so you should check them out.
Awesome. And of course, be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Kirby and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.